already done enough. And if you get the opportunity to do any more, that's just icing on the cake.
Keith, Bill Haney says he gave you a call and to talk about
Yeah. Who cares about Bill Haney? Bill Haney talks to everybody. Bet Bill Haney called your mama, okay? Nobody cares about Bill, this and that. He's the Energizer Bunny, pumping his son up. A tremendous athlete in the sport of boxing today, you know. It is what it is, man. They really don't have no reason to just be jumping up, fighting Rigaroo with Rigaroo feet. You fight some Rigaroo foot dude, you know, and at the end of the day, now you want to fight all these welterweights, you want to do this and that, man. Just take your time, continue to grow your career, you know. If it ever lines up, it lines up, man. You know, I mean, he don't hurt nobody. What's that man gonna do? Man, he's getting stronger. He gets to eat more. Oh, like, bro, you're still not that, you know, you're not that thumper. You know what I mean? It was a beautiful shot. He landed a nice little shot. You know what I'm saying? But he'll never have the capacity to just run over welterweights. You know, and you know he don't even fight with those kind of cojones. You know what I mean? He's the definition of boxing. Hit and don't get hit. Nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with that. Besides, I'm probably going to fall asleep next time I try to watch that shit.
Keith Thurman finally responds to the Haneys. You heard what he had to say in a media scrum just yesterday. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Subscribe to the channel. Now, Keith Thurman, he's been almost a character who's been out of the limelight for a minute now. Like, he's been very spotty in terms of his activity. His activity hasn't quite been there like it was earlier in his career. So it was good to hear Keith Thurman at yesterday's press conference. His last fight was against Mario Barrios, and that was in 2022, and we're in 2024. And mind you, when he fought Barrios, he fought in like February of 2022. So we just entered February. So literally he's been out the ring 2 years, right? But he finally responds to Devin Haney. I want to give you guys some of my thoughts. I mean, I don't take much from it because at the end of the day, Keith Thurman is a welterweight. I will say this. As always, I give you guys the raw, the uncut, you know, that raw stuff, that puro, that cocaína when it comes to boxing talk. Keith Thurman gets disrespected a lot, but his only loss is to I believe my fight would keep, right? Manny Pacquiao. It's the only guy that really beat him. And I understand. I mean, I'm not trying to have revisionist history, if you will. I understand Keith Thurman. There's some things that in his career are questionable, like him not fighting Errol Spence. A lot of people are like, why? You know, simply why? Why didn't you fight Errol Spence? It would have been a big fight. People were looking forward to the fight, and now we may not get the fight. Now, I will say this in Keith Thurman's defense. Keith Thurman, it looked like he wanted to fight against Errol Spence later, but Errol Spence, based on their history and not being given the opportunity when he wanted it, it got to a point where Errol Spence was like, nah, that ship has sailed. And then he went on to fight Terrence Crawford. But now looking at how the Crawford fight played out, it made sense for Errol Spence to give his body a break. You see Keith Thurman moving up to fight Tim Tszyu from down under, right? So you could have easily, Errol Spence, I'm saying, he could have easily fought against Keith Thurman and moved up, which would have been better for his body, Errol Spence, and fought Keith Thurman at 154, because clearly Keith is down for the get down to move up to 54, and maybe he feels at this time in his career he'd rather make that weight cut being 2 years off than having to make 47 again, right? So that's just food for thought. Now, regarding what Keith Thurman said about Devin Haney, again, for me, I'm a grown man. There's a lot of content creators who it's really, boxing is becoming like a gossip columnist, you know. It's becoming like National Enquirer. I see so many different topics, and I could just read titles and read posts and tell you this is not verified, credible information just by reading it. So that's what is happening in the sport. Like I said, boxing at the current moment is looking soft. Boxing is looking real soft. A lot of like misinformation, a lot of fake news, a lot of sensationalized titles. Me, I've been in the game so long, I don't really have to do that over the top stuff. I'm well known and well respected, and I'm West Side connected. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not doing all that. So when I'm giving you these videos, I'm giving you my truest thoughts. Keith Thurman is fighting Tim Tszyu. That is a tough fight. So I will give you guys the news of what he said about Devin Haney, but I'm not going to read too much into it like some boxing fans do, because it's not a realistic fight. When he's fighting in his next fight, we know who he's fighting, and that's a dangerous fight. So I'm not going to overly talk about the Devin Haney in terms of, I'll talk about what was said, but I'm not going to try to build it up like this is the next fight when he hasn't even got past this fight. And I think that's one of the main reasons boxing is looking soft. On top of fighters going to social media with Twitter X fingers and typing and announcing fights that aren't made, and really the carriage before the horse. And fighters are, that's one major problem. Fighters are amping up the fight and the business is not laid. The business is not done. Contracts haven't been agreed or sent, and you're getting hyped for a fight. I don't really do that on my channel. I give you guys the news, but usually in these situations, if it seems like fake or fantasy, then, really count me out. I don't have much to say. Now, Keith Thurman did say that Devin Haney basically is a boring fighter, and he doesn't have the capacity or the cojones or the style to really get aggressive and run over welterweights. People are like, oh, Devin Haney, he's packing on muscle, he's packing on size. But Keith Thurman doesn't believe that any of that will be beneficial. He doesn't think that Devin Haney truly hurts welterweights. He's not going to go up to welterweight. And I can't say yay or nay because we haven't seen it. But I will say this from a historical perspective of boxing: the more you move up, the harder it becomes to do that, right? Meaning Danny Garcia had a lot of power at 140, and he was knocking guys out, hurting them bad, things like that. At 47, those fights, when the guys got bigger and tougher and better chins and, had more power and stuff like that, those fights got even harder for Danny Garcia. So at 54, it remains to be seen because he only has a handful of fights, probably like one fight or so at 54, but he's going to have to rely on things outside of power, because if you had minimal power at 47, you're not going to move up to 54 in most cases and then have the type of power that Better Biev has at light heavyweight in that new division. So I think the same goes for Devin Haney, or really any fighter. There's only been a handful of fighters that I could say are exceptions to the rule, where maybe they moved up and they started getting even more knockouts. Guys like Terrence Crawford, Canelo, and Manny Pacquiao. Those are the fighters offhand that come to mind where they moved up. And I think for Crawford, I think he just refined his style. He got more experience, so he has that nasty, mean attitude. So for Crawford, he learned how to put it together even more and use his style even more aggressively than he did versus Ray Beltran and Ricky Burns. That's why he was knocked out every welterweight that he's faced. Canelo and Pacquiao, I don't really know. They just seemingly moved up and hurt guys more, and Pacquiao moved up 8 weight classes and started hurting people more. So it remains to be seen truly what Devin Haney's power is, because at this moment of me recording the video, the Devin Haney fighting welterweights is just a thought. Now, I have to touch on this because I would be remiss if I didn't. Keith Thurman, again, as I said earlier in this video, he receives a lot of flack for whatever reason amongst boxing fans. Is he the fighter that's made perfect decisions? Absolutely not. But that list is very short of fighters who nothing in their career they've done wrong. But I do think Keith Thurman receives a lot of unwarranted disrespect. Tim Tszyu is a good fight. You know, you could favorite Tim Tszyu because he's a beast and he's coming into his own with his style, and he's trying to uphold the lineage and his surname, things like that. But I think Keith Thurman could make it a challenge for Tim Tszyu because he has smarts and he has power, etc. And he has faster feet than Tim Tszyu. But regardless of who you pick in that particular fight, there were Devin Haney radical fans who said that Keith Thurman was ducking, and I told you I have to address these types of narratives that are out. So again, there were Devin Haney radical. I like Devin Haney, but I'm also a fair and objective person. I like Devin Haney, what he's doing, etc. And I don't have to say any more than that. But there's some radical Devin Haney fans who seemingly lack critical thinking and objectivity. And they were saying, oh, because Bill Haney, and he extended the offer. He told Keith Thurman, hey, we want to fight you. Come down to the Bay Area and watch Devin versus Rougarou. Keith Thurman declined it. He said, I'm not going to the West Coast. I got stuff to do. Right. So he didn't go to the fight. And then from that moment, people say, oh, Keith Thurman, he's ducking Devin Haney. But now those same people, in my opinion, look foolish. Reason being, if Keith Thurman was let's say, using their logic, let's say Keith was ducking against Devin Haney. Why would you duck a smaller fighter with less power and in your very next fight off of a 2-year layoff, fight a bigger fighter in a higher weight class where you have less experience, who's a champion, who hits hard and has a very, forward-facing, gung-ho, aggressive style like Tim Tszyu? That rationale for me doesn't make sense. You're going to duck a smaller guy with less power, right, in Devin Haney to fight a bigger guy off of the 2-year layoff. So to me, Tim Tszyu is a more dangerous fight. Like, Devin Haney can box, and this is what Keith Thurman was saying. He could box his butt off, but that's likely what it will be. At the elite level, Devin didn't stop George Kambosos in 2 fights, didn't stop Lomachenko, and he didn't stop Regis Prograis. So if he moves up 7 more pounds, I can't imagine that he would stop Keith Thurman, who's never been stopped even by the likes of Manny Pacquiao, Danny Garcia, Sean Porter, and the names that he's fought. But Tim Tszyu, with his style at a higher weight plus Keith Thurman's inactivity, Tim Tszyu could very well stop Keith Thurman. So I had to let the record show that whole talking point that Keith Thurman was ducking Devin Haney, to me, looks foolish, because I don't see, you don't duck this to get that. Like, you don't, like, if you could go down a dark alley and a person has a pocket knife, and then you go down another alley B, and the person has a machete, you're not going to pick the guy with the machete as opposed to the guy with the pocket knife. You know what I'm saying? If you had to cross and to get home, and you had to either see the guy down alley A with the pocket knife or the smaller knife, or you had to go down alley B and the guy has a machete and he's just standing there like Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees. You're going to choose the person with the smaller knife, point blank, period. Subscribe to the channel. Best in the business.